Hey everybody, we're going to be installing the front brake kit on this Nissan Skyline R33 Autech GTR today. Why don't you follow along with us? We've got the front brakes all dismantled off the car. If you read your instructions, you'll see that we need to trim the dust shield to remove this outer portion. We'll go ahead and get that done, then we'll get into installing the Wilwood brake kit. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is clean our mating surfaces where our caliper bracket's gonna bolt to the spindle and where our hat rotor assembly is gonna slide over the hub. We're gonna go ahead and get started with assembling our caliper bracket to the upright. We're gonna install our caliper bracket bolts through the spindle using the given washers, and then one shim that's going to go between the spindle and the bracket per the instructions. At this time, we're just going to mock everything up because later we'll be checking to make sure that the caliper's centered over the rotor. Let's go ahead and get our hat and rotor assemblies mounted together. So we're gonna take the front face of our hat that'll be mounted this way and lay it flat. Then we're gonna take the front face of our rotor, this flat side, and it'll bolt to the back side of the hat assembly. Place some Loctite onto the tips of all of your bolts and get them started by hand. We're gonna take our inch-pound torque wrench and set it to 155 inch-pounds. When we tighten up these bolts, we wanna do them in a cross pattern. Once we've got our hat and rotor assembled, we're gonna go ahead and install the hat rotor onto the 5-lug pattern of this hat and all the way up against the face or the mating area of the hub. We're gonna install 3 lug nuts to keep the hat rotor securely fastened while we shim and center our caliper up. I always like to spin the hat and rotor assembly to make sure that we have no interference with things like the dust shield. In this case, we're good. The next thing we're gonna do is install the radial mount Superlight caliper onto the bracket over the rotor. The way I like to do this is turn the wheel so that I can see everything a little bit easier. And what we're gonna do is take the caliper, make sure that you've got the corresponding side. So in this case, the right-hand side caliper, you'll see there's arrows. It's because the staggered bore piston assembly in the caliper needs to go one way. Per the instructions, we'll install one shim, then install our caliper. Once the caliper's in place, we'll install our hardened washers and our 7/16 nuts. So for now, we're gonna hand tighten our radial mount nut. Once those two are hand tight, we're gonna spin our rotor again to make sure that nothing's interfering. And in this case, we're in good shape. After that, we're gonna take our bridge tube assembly out of the caliper and then double check to make sure that our caliper is centered over the rotor from side to side. In this case, it looks good. After that, we're gonna take our brake pads and install them so that the friction side is facing the rotor. Again, double check and make sure that everything is moving freely. In this case, it is. We also wanna check that our pad height is correct. At this time, we're gonna install our bridge tube assembly and tighten it down. Now that we've got our caliper mocked up onto our bracket and it's centered over the rotor and we're happy with our pad height, we're gonna go ahead and take each of the caliper bracket bolts out one at a time, red Loctite them, and then reinstall them to 60 foot-pounds. The last thing that we need to do is torque our radial mount caliper bolts to 30 foot-pounds. Okay, we're at the final stage. We're gonna go ahead and mount our steel braided line kit. There's gonna be a certain way that you need to follow routing this cable. So, as I'm doing it, we'll go ahead and talk about it. Let's get started. We're gonna start by taking off where the caliper inlet fitting is, and you'll see that there's a sticker with an 1/8 inch pipe inlet. That's where we're gonna be routing our system to. The steel braided line kit is gonna come with a 90-degree -3 to 1/8 inch pipe fitting. We're gonna Teflon tape that and get it installed, and we're gonna finish with it going straight underneath the knuckle or spindle upright. The next thing is we're gonna take the right hand steel braided line and we're gonna bring it behind the spindle or upright and attach it to our -3 caliper inlet fitting. And we're gonna give it just a small snug so that it won't leak. Once we've got that, we're gonna make sure that it's routing underneath the spindle assembly, not up and over, but under. At this point, I'm gonna turn the wheel back the other way so that we can work on this side. You'll see the bracket that's attached to the steel braided line. We're gonna bring it up and use the existing stock 12mm headed bolt and mount it in this back location on the spindle upright. We're gonna go ahead and tighten up that bolt just as you see it. So the last step is going to be having your clip for the chassis inside to be ready to be installed. And we're going to quickly take off our cutoff tool, which is stopping the flow of fluid, and attach it to our chassis fitting. So you'll find that the chassis fitting, there's going to be a spot that it fits into place. That's where we want it to be located so that we can install our clip easily. So at that point, we're going to go ahead and tighten down the fitting coming from the chassis with our line wrench. So the next thing that we'll do, and to finalize our routing, is turn the wheel both left and right and make sure that we have no binding on our steel braided line kit. And it looks like everything's good. So the last thing that we want to make sure that we go back and do, make sure that this caliper inlet line is not binding, and tighten it up. And now we're complete with our installation. We're going to go ahead and bleed the brakes. Then we're going to take it out and bed it per the instructions in your data sheet. If you have any questions while doing this install, give us a call at 805-388-1188 or visit us at wilwood.com.